Sydney developer ordered to fix faults. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. Let's have a look at this article from the Sydney Morning Herald that several people have sent me asking my opinion on. So, the developer of Sydney's worst tower ordered to fix faults. Now, Matt, I reckon you may be making a bit of a leap there if you think this is the worst tower. There are a lot of contenders in Sydney for worst tower. Let's just bring up my Google Maps, and if we zoom into Sydney, you can see some of the buildings that have had issues. I'm going to turn off borders and labels. What I like to call is the triangular fail from Zetland Apartments, Sugar Cube to Mascot Tower in this area here. Now, if you go back through the old photographs, you'll see this was all industrial area here. All industrial. Really far back. And that's caused a lot of issues in the water table. So you can't even bring up water from the ground here. It's all contaminated. And it's all leaching down here towards good old Botany Bay. It's, it's something to consider. There's another thing for your potential property purchase. Go back to historical photographs and see what was going on there 100 years ago, everyone. Just to bear in mind. So, you know, we've got Mascot. We're all quite familiar with that one. We've got Otto Rosebery. That issues there. The Zetland, I mean, these guys are still, I have to follow up on it, but, you know, still empty. And Sugar Cube. Contaminated land issues here on this development. Same thing. Big problems. So apparently, we've got the worst tower in Sydney, the worst tower here. So let's see if it's just a bit of exaggeration or if it's actually true. So the developer of a 16-story apartment tower in Western Sydney, which has been singled out by the New South Wales Building Commissioner, David Chandler, as one of the worst he has inspected, has been handed orders forcing it to fix serious defects. Okay, so one of the worst he's inspected. Now, here's the issue, guys. In Sydney, over the last few years, it's kind of petered off now, but there's been an overheating of the apartment construction market. And here's a quote that Matt Berry put up he did a Medium or LinkedIn post about just the housing sector here in Australia a few years ago. And when I discovered that, this quote shocked me. In 2016, 67% of Australia's GDP came from the cities of Melbourne and Sydney, where both state and federal governments have done everything they can to fuel a runaway housing market. We're seeing that now. The small area from Sydney's CBD to Macquarie Park is in the middle of an apartment building frenzy, alone contributing 24% to the country's entire GDP growth for 2016, according to SGS Economics and Logic. Economics and Planning. Should be logic. 24% of the GDP for our entire country, everyone, in that little area. What does that tell you? It tells you we've got an overheating sector. This is the problem. Our politicians see the construction sector as a money piñata or an economic stimulus piñata. They just hit it when they need candy to fall out. I need to have a shot of coffee here. Maybe I'm getting too cynical in my old age. So the tower at 93 Auburn Road in Auburn. I'm going to add that to here, to my thing. Road. Auburn Road, Auburn. Let's have a look. We'll bring it up here. It's outside of my... Oh, it's in the western Sydney. It's definitely outside of my triangular fail. So, let's have a look here. Let's do some Google Street View investigations. I mean, there you go. It looks like, well, boring towers that you have these days. A typical residential, stack one on the other. Yeah, as an architect, I understand exactly why they're doing it, but this is an expression of the zeitgeist of our time. This is an expression of what's important to us these days. There's no ornamentation, there's no decoration, just cheap, scram it up, put it up there, boom, boom, boom. But what's really shocking and terrible is the scale. I mean, look at this. Look how uncomfortable it is looking up when you compare it to the street scale. And that's the thing. 3 or 4 stories psychologically, this has a much different scale just to your whole experience of walking at the street level. When you're walking at that, sure, you've got the street level, all the shops are empty, but then you've got, you know, a huge bloody tower there. Even compare it to this one over here. Where am I going? Where am I going? Hang on, exit street view. Compare it to this development here. It looks like we've got it, you know, even that. That looks like it's commercial, but still, just the impact of it. Notice how they've stepped it back from the facade before they've gone up. Have they done that here? We can't see in this photo. Oh, well, there you go. That's what it used to look like. So that's what it used to be. Now, in some ways, I prefer this, just from the psychological impact that it has on you as you occupy a place. Because it all changes then once you get super high. I saw that in Berlin as well. The streetscape was much nicer with the lower scale of buildings compared to the higher ones. So there you go. Bringing more jobs and homes to Auburn. The tower at 93 Auburn Road in Auburn has joined a growing list of apartment buildings to have been slapped with orders in recent weeks as the Commissioner steps up efforts to weed out shoddy work and restore public confidence in an industry still reeling from the structural flaws in Opal and Mascot Towers. But it's too little too late, everyone. Think about how much of this stuff has been built. It's going to be coming out of the woodwork for a decade. And sure, I've got these ones, you know, in Sydney on my Google map here, but there are a whole heap of other ones around the country as well. Guys, if we zoom out, where I've done, read through articles on them, I've spoken to people have rang me up. There's issues, there's construction issues throughout all of Australia. Guys, Perth ones I haven't pinned. In Darwin as well, in the Gold Coast, in Brisbane. You know, Verve Apartments there. It's not appearing in the media. I hope they've sorted out their holes between walls that they had that they discovered due to a water leak. So there's a lot of issues. So, you know, they're going to come in. The politicians are going to claim to do whatever they can, or the bureaucrats. And, I mean, good on them. They're doing their best. But this is what happens when you've got an overheated market, guys. Back in the day in Sydney. I mean, look at that. We were talking about 2016. Look at all of these Foreign Investment Review Board approvals, for building approvals, the ratio of them for foreign investment. It's overheated the sector. And when you get an overheated sector, your timeframes get cut. I've experienced it, everyone. We worked on mining stuff during the boom. That was when we'd just started our business. We got into some, mining modular work, and I had to have like 5 people working from a Queenslander, a house we rented, just to keep up with just the tender submissions they were paying us to do. It just goes crazy. So, I mean, you could say, oh, why doesn't everyone turn down the work? Because it's feast or famine in construction. You know, there's so many people flat out now, and hopefully they're making hay while the sun shines. So let's look at this a bit more. The orders to fix serious defects in the Auburn Tower have been slapped on Goldenina Developments, whose sole director is the founder of Sydney property developer and builder Merhis. The building at 93 Auburn Road is one of 2 towers known as Eliza, on a site in Auburn's town centre, which Murr dubs architectural landmarks of the finest standard. Architectural landmarks of the finest standard. So, a grey box. What Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's marketing spin, guys. It's marketing spin. They shouldn't be allowed. Here's the thing we should implement in legislation. No one should be allowed to use the word architectural unless it's been procured with an architect administering the contract, not just designing it, administering the contract, or even a clerk of works on site. Used to be a big issue with a lot of these buildings that you'll see. A common denominator is the procurement method, where it's done with a design and construct. The developer will get a town plan done and marketing stuff done by the architect. Then they will shift the architect to be underneath the builder, and they just deal with the builder. And then as the architect, you have lost that chain of communication with your original client. So you can't inform them of any cost-cutting measures or any issues. You're meant to be there to sign off on these things, but then you get the screws put on you. That's the problem. That's one of the biggest issues, I would say, is our procurement methods, because the traditional policemen in the industry, which were the architects and the certifiers, are now all working for the builder. So if your next meal ticket is coming from this one guy, what are you going to do? And the thing is, once you get into an adversarial relationship on a job like this, that's not where you want to be. It's horrible. It's stressful. It causes sleepless nights, and your whole business could be dependent on a project like this. And it's a terrible situation to be in, particularly when you need to put the pressure on someone, because then you're the difficult person when you're trying to do the right thing, and they won't work with you again. I've had that happen to me. I remember there's one job, client was giving us a huge amount of work, and I didn't agree with the method they used to attach one building to another, because what they were proposing could cause internal flooding and water getting into the walls. The way they wanted to lap over a gutter. It wasn't a big risk, but it was a risk. I wasn't happy with it. I wanted them to do it properly. What do you think happened, everyone? Who do you think I was working for? So we lost that client. Think anyone cares? No. No one cares. That's the problem, fundamentally, with this procurement method. And there's never any discussion of it. Probably because people don't get it. They don't realize. So that's one suggestion I would put. Before you even say the word architectural, you either need to have an architect administering the contract, and then you're acting as an independent third party. You're between the builder and the developer. The builder won't get his money until you approve it, even if the developer wants to pay them. So even if the developer wants to do some dodgy stuff. Because as a professional with an act, you are meant to have a duty of care to the public. That's disappeared. Other people in the game in construction don't have that duty of care. And in some ways, it just hampers us as architects. Because interior designers, they'll specify all the furniture in these things, and they'll get a cut. They'll get a kickback. It's all BS. For us, it's considered a hidden commission. So, considering what we get paid as architects out there, what the wages are out there, and what the fees you're earning, it's just not worth it with regards to the responsibilities you're meant to take on some of these jobs. It really isn't. So, there's one reason why I'm never touching developer stuff myself anymore. I've been there. I've had bad experiences every time. Cost cutting, bloody hell. Bunch of cowboys. Anyway, back to this. Karen Stiles, executive officer of the non-profit Owners Corporation Network, which represents apartment owners, said it beggars belief that buildings so badly built receive occupation certificates which allow developers to settle on apartments. Well, not really. It's what's happening all the time. You've got one thing that they can do in New South Wales is you get temporary, temporary building classification? I can't remember the name. It's been a while. A temporary occupation certificate, essentially. And we've used them on jobs. We did a whole lot of Lorna Jane jobs there, and there'd be one little thing that maybe you need to move a sprinkler head or maybe you need to make a small adjustment. Now, you could get a temporary certificate that allows you, or classification, that allows you to occupy and use the premises under the condition that that rectification was made. Now, in these retail spaces, it will be made. It could just be one day, one night, where, okay, the guy can't get out, needs to get out later. They need to meet their deadline to open the place. And that isn't a huge amount of risk that can be managed. All of this with construction, you've got to understand it's about risk management, just like everything else. But there's some cases where people are getting these temporary classifications or certifications, and they're occupying buildings for 10 years. So I'm not surprised that it could happen on someone like this. They were clearly not fit for habitation. The new powers vested in the New South Wales Building Commissioner are essential to changing the toxic construction culture that has left innocent purchasers facing years of financial and emotional misery, fighting to get the building quality they paid for, she said. We'll have to see, guys. In some ways, I think it's all theatre. This is the problem. There's going to be years of these things coming out. Years of them. In September, the Building Commissioner gained the power to enter and inspect building sites, prevent the issuing of occupation certificates, call for documents, and order work to be stopped. Mr. Chandler said the defects found in the Auburn Tower were at the upper end of the range compared to other buildings that has been inspected. Firefighters used bolt cutters to inspect an apartment tower in late 2019. Okay, fantastic. The current focus is on the remediation of serious defects that exist in the building, he said. Mr. Chandler said owners and tenants could remain in the all-burn building while the fixes were undertaken, as it was safe to occupy. Okay, so if it's safe to be there, they haven't said they haven't told us the defects yet. He has previously revealed that the tower, which he has said is probably the worst he has inspected, was the straw that broke the camel's back in convincing the state government to enact tougher powers to protect apartment owners. He was shocked when he visited the building in October 2019 after Fire and Rescue New South Wales urged him to inspect the tower due to fire safety concerns. Just one of its two lifts worked, and the other shaft was too small to fit its lift due to construction flaws. Oh. Now, I can understand exactly how that could happen. Okay? A lift is procured well before probably even before you finish the documentation in some regards. You know, with these things, they're probably pumped out the drawings and they're marketing. When you're signing up, buying off the plans aren't finished. They're not finished. They're still working on them. People are still drawing the plans. They'll still change. You take educated guesses based on your experience of what you'll need structure and all of these things. But, you know, it changes. It changes. Things happen. And it could be that they'd ordered the lift because they're all made overseas. Nothing's made here. I don't know. Maybe these ones are made here. There could be. There are a few lift manufacturers here in Australia, but everything I've dealt with has ended up being overseas. But still, it's a huge lead time. So you start the work on that before you finish other parts of the project just to get it there in time. So it could be you had to make a slight change to some walls. Oh, damn. Last June, Meris said the defects raised had largely already been resolved or were in the process of being remedied. The developer did not respond to questions from the Herald about the latest orders to fix serious defects in the Auburn apartment building. What are the defects? I need to look that up. Inspectors visited the building again last October, finding serious defects in waterproofing, fixing of wall tiles to bathrooms and ensuite walls, as well as falls in the tiled floor finishes to bathrooms and ensuites to ensure adequate surface draining. Okay, so it looks like they may have had a dodgy plumber or a dodgy tiler here doing a dodgy tiling job. Okay, that's a defect, sure. But when I'm thinking serious defects, I'm thinking, well, that can be a long-term health and safety defect of water getting into your wet areas if you don't have adequate waterproofing, because then it gets into the walls and then you get mold, and that can be really bad. But it can be rectified. It's not like a huge structural issue where your building's cracking. That's much worse. Notice of proposed prohibition order for 93 Auburn Road was issued on Christmas Eve, which prompted the developer to make a proposal to fix the defects. But the developer's proposal did not address all of the serious defects, leading the commissioner to issue the prohibition and building work rectification orders. Okay, so, I mean, there we have it, everyone. There we have it. I don't know if this is really the worst one he's inspected. If it's some tiling issues. You know, there's others. We've seen others around the country. Have a look at some of my videos. Look at what happened in the Verve, everyone, with regards to they had concrete walls that were cast in place where you could see through the concrete. You could see through it. See through the holes. Look at what's happening at Zetland. So, I guess he's just new on the scene. He's got a lot to see with regards to defects. I mean, this is the thing. If you've been working on good projects, you may not have seen some of the dodgy stuff. And I remember when I did my first ever defects inspection as a student. I was working for the Architectural Practice Academy, and it was a little ambulance station training room extension. And just this thing was like 4 meters by 4 meters. It was tiny, little tiny extension. And the number of defects there was crazy. Good old Q-build. Good old Q-build. Learn a lot there. Bloody, I could push the plaster in with my fingers. They hadn't joined strips of the bloody vinyl. They hadn't reset the gutters to adjust the flow. They just left it there to pool in the gutter. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. That just screams utter laziness. I mean, that was government workers. So, I mean, there we have it, everyone. There we have it. You know, ordered to rectify defects. What do you think? What do you reckon? I mean, one of many. But guys, it's all a little too late now. You know, it's already been built. How are they going to change the culture? That's going to be interesting. I'd like them to change the use of the term of architectural. Landmark. I guess it is a landmark, isn't it? You know what this reminds me of? There's a computer game, Fallout 3, where the whole world dies. You know, nuclear explosion, mutants, and things like that. It's quite a fun little RPG shoot 'em game. And there's this one tower that survives right in the middle of nowhere. That's what that reminds me of. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there's a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.